Hey everyone, Michelle here, personal trainer and lifestyle coach. Today on the Because You're Incredible podcast, I have an awesome guest with us, Adam Sarancik. He is the owner of Elevate Sports Academy and he has been training athletes for decades, specifically baseball athletes. And he is a really great person to really think about the way that you're coaching your athletes and how you should guide them to where they want to be in their futures. Thank you so much for joining us today, Adam.
Thank you, Coach Michelle. Good to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So, can you tell us a little bit about your background, kind of where you got or how you got where you are today, and what brought you around to what you're doing now?
Oh, sure. First of all, thanks for having me on in this opportunity. I mean, this concept of, you know, transitioning from, being focused solely as an elite athlete to, wow, now I've got to consider college and, which college is appropriate. It's a super topical, issue today. So, and congratulations on your success and the success of your podcast too. I
Thank you
want
so
to
much.
for sure give you a shout out for all the good work that that you've done and that you're doing. And finally, real quickly, I want to thank coaches. If there are coaches listening, I don't think they get enough thank yous. So I want to thank them for everything they've done, particularly if they see their coaching as a mentorship of, mentoring people as the priority. I want to thank them for that. And then if there's anybody out there that does sports officiating, I want to thank them as well. I think they're going through a real difficult time right now, and without them, we wouldn't have the sports that we do. So there's so many volunteers in so many capacities out there, and I just want to make sure that they get their due. And I always try to start off podcasts when I do them, thanking all of those people. I don't usually do a deep dive into my educational background, but since we're talking about education, I probably should talk about the fact that I'm a kind of a professional student. So I got a Bachelor of Science in Business Management with minors in political science and psychology. Then I went to law school and practiced law for 8 years as a litigation attorney, and then I got a master's in teaching to teach business classes in high school. So I taught sports marketing and all kinds of business classes to high school students. So generally, that's my formal education. I've got more certifications than I know what to do with, just because everything nowadays, from the business point of view, seems to require certification. So whether I'm a real estate broker, so whether it's in real estate or strength and conditioning or nutrition or whatever, every step of the way, when you're a professional student, seems to have a certification. But through all that, I've come to, with my athletes, realize that this whole process of marrying my athletic career with my career and what might happen after college or what might happen after my athletic days, at least formally competing as a athlete as part of the specific program, are done. That's a tough transition that I think kids are being misled into a certain path that I don't think long term, let's just say, as good as it could be. All right. They tend to settle for something as opposed to, really pursuing a passion and ending up in a spot they really are self-actualized about. Okay. So anyway, I was a small business owner. I've been a nutritionist. And then I've been a trainer of athletes, not just baseball, but basketball, soccer, football, and then female bodybuilding. One of my kind of transitions happened back in 1980. I started working out at a bodybuilder's gym, and I started coaching female bodybuilders with my strength and conditioning background. And that took me into an interesting path in a couple of reasons. I learned at that time the importance of every athlete is different, their body, their structure, its function, it's a little bit different. So as you know, as a trainer, the importance of assessment and individual needs, both physiologically and psychologically, are very, very important. So when I started coaching bodybuilders, specifically women bodybuilders, I became very, very aware of that and started to think about and incorporate the need to make sure that every athlete is considered first as a person and as somebody with specific needs. Okay. The second part of that, because of the bodybuilding aspect, the mistake I made, first of all, was just think, okay, so I have an athlete here that I'm trying to prepare for a competition. And you're trying to sculpt that body to be the best that it could be for, that particular competition. So you're 6 months out or 9 months out or whatever. And what I failed to realize first time through is you can do an awesome job with a woman sculpting your body to be, something that almost any person would would be proud of and idealize. But once the competition is over and they've been, you know, prepared to be, elite, and their body is looking the best that it could possibly look, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, when it doesn't look quite the same, women in particular took that really, really hard to the point of, yikes, this is almost mentally not healthy. And they would go almost into a depression about, wait a minute, my body isn't. And we can go into all the reasons why, but boy, I had to do a real deep dive on why that was. And so the second time around, I had, in the next season, I had to think, okay, we're going to have to do a deep dive and almost debrief before we even start this process. And I actually got out pictures of other athletes that I had trained and say, okay, this is how you're going to look on the day of the competition. This is not realistic for you to maintain forever. And there's nothing wrong with that, and we would have to go through that. So long story short, I won't go into any more than that. But the long story short is, it really caused me to focus on the personal aspect, because how you approached that athlete, you couldn't have the same script for everyone. You really had to get to know that athlete and how it was going to work with her, to describe to her the process and how we were going to debrief once we got to that point. And that took years to be good at, to work with the athlete. So carrying forward, that kind of led me to think, okay, in any kind of coaching, I don't care what you're doing, if you don't connect with the person first, you're in trouble. Okay. You're not going to get the most out of that person. They're not going to trust you. They're not going to be willing to learn from you. And then you need to look at the athlete next. Okay. So you need to connect with the person first, then you need to train the athlete. And then third, once you do those two things, if you do them well, that will give you the potential to develop the best possible player. So, I have a saying, better people equals better athletes equals better players and teammates equals champions for life. Okay. So that's how that all originated. That's a long story short, a long story about how, I kind of got into that philosophy and, in my background. The other thing that happened was, I was a multi-sport athlete, but I was recruited as a baseball player. And San Diego State was very interested in me. And at that time, it was the very first year that freshmen were allowed to play varsity sports. Okay. And they just made a decision as a staff that they were going to offer 2 scholarships, and that was it. And so I was not one of those 2, but I was what you call a preferred walk-on. They were still interested in me. And San Diego State gave me a academic scholarship paid for my tuition and books. So that's why I went there, because I got an athletic scholarship and they were interested in me, an academic scholarship, and they were interested in me as an athlete. Well, it turned out they held true to their only 2 scholarships for their freshmen. And even though I was the best outfielder that they had, they said, you're obviously the best, but we've already promised these other 2 athletes the scholarships. So they said, you can go to a community college like all those guys over there, pointing to the rest of the team, and come back in 2 years, or we might have a JV program in the spring. And so I chose not to pursue my athletics and stop my formal athletic career at that time, and because I wanted to put the priority on academics. The problem was, academics back then, I didn't have near the choices and I had no guidance. So then I came to this major point in my life. It's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to major in? So I majored in business, just because I thought it would be useful. And then my dad, who gave me tons and tons and tons of great advice, very, very wise man, who I appreciate so much, gave me the absolute worst advice possible. When I told him, I said, so what do you want to do? I said, well, I'd like to be a teacher and a coach. Now, try not to cringe when I say this. I know you're going to cringe. Everybody will. But he said, I think you can do better than that. And so that was about as bad advice as you could give, because that's really what I should have done. So I went off to law school and ended up being an attorney. And law school was fabulous. Being an attorney for me was not. I did that for 8 years. So that background, combining those two things together, when I got to training athletes full time, um, were big influences about how I looked at my role as a coach and how I was going to try to guide my athletes forward, you know, beyond their athletic careers, that kind of thing. So, I've done the team thing from probably 19, well, let's get this, probably 1980 to 2009. I was probably 80% teams and 20% individuals. Teams being baseball, softball, basketball, soccer. And then from 2009 to the present, about 80-20, where I'm training individuals mostly and teams not very much. And then in 2009, I started Elevate Sports Academy, where I train athletes in the gym of all sports, and then we carry it out onto the field to train them in their sports skills. And then I do the nutrition and college and career counseling as a very, very important third part of that program. So I kind of developed, starting in 2009, this kind of holistic program where athletes were not just coming to me to be trained for their sport, but also to be trained as athletes and to be guided to this next step, type of thing. So that's generally the background on how I got to where I'm at today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was great. So, one of my questions for you is that you were working with individuals and you started to work a lot more with individuals a little bit more recently. Obviously, that's a huge commitment for them, right? Not only
Yeah,
time wise, but financial wise. What was the goal of these individuals and what were they trying to get out of your program working with you?
yeah. Well, like most individual trainers, they came to me to be better at their sport, and they were coming to me to try to get an athletic scholarship. That's what the goal was, and that's kind of the problem, as we'll get into probably more in a minute. Um, there's nothing wrong with pursuing an athletic scholarship, but unless you are gifted and your learning curve is really short, um, this is going to take a lot of time, a lot of time. Many of my athletes start with me in 8th grade and they go through college and yeah. And then uh, it takes like 5 years of training to get the, say, baseball scholarship. Well, after 5 years, my program, it can be as little as 2 days a week to start with as an 8th grader. And by the time they're a senior, it can be 6 days a week. So they've spent literally thousands of hours with me, thousands. Well, how easy would it be to give up your athletic scholarship after putting in all that time, right? And yet, as we'll get into, I'd say probably 90% of the time, what is the best choice for them in their career and education is not the best choice for them or where they're going to get their college scholarship offers from. And so, yeah, that's where the problem comes in. How do I give that up after putting in so much time? Because quite frankly, I've not had the opportunity to coach a lot of the, say, elite athletes. And it's been wonderful because I'll take the average athlete, maybe the slightly above average athlete, who is more committed. So it's the old adage that hard work will beat talent when talent doesn't work hard. That's the poster child for who I work with. So it's very rewarding to develop those players and get them their athletic scholarship. What's a lot more difficult is to remind them that this never was about the athletic scholarship. It was about the journey of learning life lessons, as I say, within the game for beyond the game. It's about everything it takes as an elite athlete to be what I call a champion for life. In other words, to be a person of high moral character and integrity. And how do you explain that to a high school athlete? That's what it's about when they've worked so hard and have gone through so much adversity to get to where they're at. So anyway, yeah.
So, how early do you start having these conversations about career and the potential of college when you're working with an athlete?
Yeah, right now, right up front. I didn't when I first started, and that was a big mistake that I made. Now I have to explain to them, and that's why I've gone to the program that I have, because I don't feel good if an athlete goes off to college, and even if they have a somewhat successful athletic career, and come out with just a degree that they can't use, okay, or that it's not going to lead to them getting a job that they're passionate about, and so now I won't take an athlete into my program unless we have the career and college counseling piece as a part of it. And the same thing with the athletic piece. I used to just train baseball players to be good baseball players and did a pretty good job at it. And then I realized, oh my word, I could do so much better job if I could train them as an athlete first, right? Their potential as a player is directly related to how good an athlete they are. So we need to spend some time in the gym. And then I started doing a really good job at that. And I thought, oh my word, every single player I've ever worked with that has been in my program for 3 years or more has got an athletic scholarship offer. And that's not bragging. That's just, if you're good at what you do and you know how to go about it, and you go about it in that way, athlete first and then player, they're going to have the opportunity to play somewhere, particularly baseball. Okay. But that doesn't mean that's the best thing for them. Okay. Baseball is going to come to an end. They're not playing pro ball, most likely, right? I never tell somebody you're not, but that's just the statistics, right? Very, very few do. So what happens? What happens after that? So yeah, this conversation has to start from day one. And it's not just with them, it's with their parents, and everybody has to understand this. And to be honest, I'm still working through it because college is getting more and more expensive, and the seduction of athletes into the whole process of getting an athletic scholarship and competing, in college is stronger than ever. And so it's tough. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the decision. Obviously, this is not a one and done conversation, right? This is something that you're going to talk about several times to kind of figure out where they want to go. So, with college being in the running, what are some options for high school athletes to do when they want to move past high school sports?
Yeah. Well, bottom line is, I think you first have to realize you don't have to go to college to be successful. All right. And, you know, I don't know what those stats are. I'm going to backtrack one thing here, because I want to make a point here that um, I don't know how many people know the statistics. All right. But my experience is 95% of high school athletes apply for college without any kind of process at all. Any kind of process. They're going there because a family member went there, their friends go there, they've kind of heard it's a good college. There's no determination of what career path they may want to take and whether this college is the best fit for them. Okay. Um, they're just simply going there because this is a place that's offered me a scholarship and I'm going to save a lot of money. 30% of college freshmen drop out, and 33 to 40% of college students drop out before they graduate. 43% of the graduates end up in careers that don't even require a college degree. All right. And 70% of college students end up working in a field unrelated to what they studied in college. So if you combine all those things, the dropout rate with the underemployment rate, with I don't even know why I went to college to spend all that time and money, uh, studying something and getting a degree in something I'm never going to use. We have to take a backtrack and say, what's going on here? What's going on? And is this really the way we need to go about it? Okay. And then I think we have to understand the assumptions that are being made when we're moving forward. Like I say, I don't have any stats on this. I just know that I hear the same things over and over and over again about, well, we don't want to come out to college with a lot of debt, or, this is a good college or whatever. Okay. So I think I'd like to take a minute and go through what I call the 7 deadly mistakes, myths, sins of people thinking about college and whether they should, pursue it, and how they should go about thinking of it. This is the mistakes that they made. First of all, they have no process. So I said that. We'll just go with that. It's like, and I hear from parents sometimes, they'll say, well, my kid's a senior in high school. How are they supposed to know how to choose? Well, guess what? When you get to college, there's a lot of programs that are going to require that get a career path early on, because before they'll say allow you into the business school, you've got to complete 2 years of prerequisites, very specific prerequisites, before you even get to the business school. Well, you think a year later, after a few pizza parties and gatherings, shall we say, with your friends, you're going to have any better process at making that determination? And the fact of the matter is, it might even be worse, because now you've committed to a college and you've only got the smorgasbord of class options that they offer, right? So anyway, there's no process. There needs to be a process, and it needs to start early in high school. Secondly, we have to understand that athletes now in all sports are seduced into this kind of sports glorification mentality that we have in America. Okay, there is a huge glorification of athletes. Many times they're the most popular people on campus. There's rarely a pep rally for the arts and and music students, right? Pep rallies are for athletes. And then there's a whole, almost a requirement of year-round sports. Okay, I don't care what your sport is. If you're a spring sport person, you have a summer league and a fall league and a winter league. It goes all year round, and you're made to feel like if you don't participate year round, you're going to fall behind. And sometimes you just say, look, if you're a soccer player and you don't do our winter soccer program or our fall program, or if you're a high school quarterback and you're not doing the 7v7 camps and the quarterback camps, we don't have any use for you. That's just how you're made to feel, right? And then there's what I call the showcase mentality. All right. Well, everybody loves to go to these showcases, whether you're in baseball, softball, whatever, and all these colleges are going to come, and you're going to feel like, wow, I'm pretty popular, and somebody's going to offer me a scholarship. And it's like, wow, I went to this showcase, I was with all these elite athletes, and now I'm being offered a scholarship. Isn't that fantastic? And wow, I'm going to save all this money going to college. And this is great. And it's absolutely backward. It's absolutely backward. You should be looking at the career first that you might want to pursue, the career path, and what education at what college is going to be the best for that. And then you should go to showcases or camps where coaches, recruiting coaches from those colleges are going to be at. Okay, so you don't go to the showcase first, and by default, whoever offers you the scholarship, go there. You choose the showcase based on what my best options are for a college. Okay, first. And 90, I don't know what percent, almost all the time it's done backwards these days. They just sign up for the most prestigious showcase, or the ones that send out these fancy letters saying, we're interested in you. Please come to our showcase. We got all these great colleges and coaches coming. And so they sign up for that. And then that's the way it goes. It's a business. They don't realize the business aspect. So that's the third thing. The fourth thing, as we briefly touched on, it's really hard to give up what they've trained for years and years and years and thousands of hours, right? The fourth thing is they over prioritize the cost aspect of college. I'm not saying cost isn't important. College is super expensive. We get that. An athletic scholarship can sometimes help reduce that. That is definitely true. And it's definitely important at some point. The problem is, again, it's backward. We should reserve the cost consideration until we've determined which are the best choices for me academically. It's a second tier icing on the cake type of thing. You should make your list of the top 5 colleges for me based on all these factors. And then we'll go into a deep dive on the cost aspect. All right. And when it comes to cost, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of grants and scholarships and financial aid and whatever. You can qualify for them in so many different ways. But the bottom line is, you want to come out from college with as many opportunities for living wage, emphasize living wage, job opportunities in places that you would consider living as possible, not just a degree. Okay. So if you have to pay a little more for that option, you're going to make it up the cost in more and better job opportunities and higher salaries. You can imagine the debt that I end up with after college and law school and and graduate school to get my master's in teaching. There's a lot of debt. I paid it off quickly. Why? Because I had so many options for so many great jobs at much higher salaries. And let me get a quick plug in. If you're going to do one thing to increase your job options and your salary, learn Spanish. Be fluent in Spanish. You'll have 25% more job options and 10 to 20% higher salaries if you speak Spanish. It's just a reality of where we're at. So that's an advice that every coach should be giving their athletes too. But the bottom line is, when it comes to costs, I say it this way: look, education is really, really important. Kind of like taking care of your body. Okay. So if you're going to go and give your body the best fuel possible, are you going to go and fuel it at a fast food restaurant simply because you're handed a, get one free coupon? Is that going to be the best way to take care of your body? Or are you going to pay more for whole fresh foods? You're going to pay more for whole fresh foods. So why should your, academic career be any different? Okay, you need to look at it that way. Fifth, quickly, they've forgotten the whole purpose of college. Right? The purpose of college is to get the best possible education so that it's going to lead to job opportunities. Okay. A college is only as good, one of my guiding tenets of what I do. College is only good as its placement department in getting you job shadows and internships while you're in college and living wage job opportunities after college. Okay. That's a litmus test. If what you're going to come out of college with is a degree, you're in major trouble. Major trouble. I'll just give you a quick example. In our local area here, we had a recent ad for a PE teacher, physical education teacher. Great career, nothing wrong with it. 200 applicants for that one elementary school physical education teacher. Now, do you think they're going to interview 200 applicants? I don't think so. I don't think so, right? Not at all. So how are they going to make a determination who they're going to interview? Well, guess what every one of those 200 people have? They have a degree. And probably more than 100 of them have it from a really, really good college. Okay, so that should tell you something, that if all I'm coming out with is a degree with good grades from a good college, I'm not getting many job opportunities. Okay, here's another litmus test. If you're going to graduate or get near graduation and your first step is to send out 200 resumes, okay, to try to get a job, you're in trouble. That's not what should happen. If your professors and the people at the placement have not connected you with people in the industry doing what you may want to do, then they haven't done their job. Okay, because you may have the right career, but you need time to figure out who I want to do it with, where I want to do it. I mean, you can be in the absolute right career and work at the wrong company and in the wrong place. All right, that takes time. That takes internships. That takes job shadows. And that has to happen. It should happen in high school. It should start that process in high school, but it also needs to happen in college, because you shouldn't have to wonder where I should send my resume. You should be in the opportunity of having the place that you interned offer you a job and say, you know what, you guys are awesome, but I've got something even better. Better. All right. So you should be getting those kind of opportunities. Number 6 is they assume college is necessary. It's not necessary. A lot of times you can pursue a career and do hands-on, on-the-job training, get a certification, and it can be just fine. Trade schools, right? Culinary schools, auto repair, programs. There's lots of things that don't require a 4-year formal college. I tell my players all the time that you want to be successful in your career and have as much independence and as much income as you possibly want, take up a trade. Everybody today is tech oriented, okay? And yet the trades are, in need of people, absolutely in need of people. And jobs are plentiful, and it's the way to go. And then finally, number 7 is the major assumption, I think, that people make is they assume that all colleges are the same. Oh, this college, that's a good college. Well, that's not true. Okay. They're not all the same. Um, if you study it like I have, colleges have good specialties within a major based on their professors, their facilities, and most importantly, how well they connect their students, like I say, to these job opportunities that I'm talking about. All right. Let me give you a quick example. Two of my athletes were interested in the same college, and they both wanted to be kinesiology majors, something you can identify with. Okay. But one kind of wanted to take the specialty track of physical therapy or occupational therapy. Okay. Great track. Another one says, well, I think I'd rather be like Michelle and do the personal training, fitness, track, that kind of thing. Well, guess what? And I don't think all rating services are great or, whatever, but just one reputable rating service, same college, same kinesiology department, rated the physical therapy, occupational therapy track 31st in the country, and the personal training fitness industry track 452nd. Same college, same department, and that's how much it did. Why? Because the professors are different, facilities sometimes different, but most importantly, how they connected you to the job world and the opportunities that you were going to come get during college and afterwards, completely different. Let me give you some other examples. Unlike when I went to college, now if you hear somebody say I'm a business major, that you might as well just say, I'm going to college to party and eat pizza. I mean, that's not going to get you anywhere. You need to be much more specific than that. But let's just say some people, well, I kind of enjoy marketing, business marketing. Well, if you do the deep dive on business marketing, it can have a business marketing title, all right, and have some classes that sound good for business marketing. But when you really compare college to college and what those classes entail and what they prepare you for and whatever, they are dramatically different. And again, the opportunities need to be much narrower. It would be, I know my athlete is doing well when they say, I'm going to go to this college to study business marketing in social media, okay, social media marketing in the sports industry. That's how specific colleges now are when they are marketing themselves or when they're setting up their programs. They're not just business marketing, but they specialize in social media marketing. And they specialize social media marketing in the sports industry. They're going to connect you with opportunities for job shadows in industry and internships in the sports industry. Now as you can see, now you're on a path to get somewhere after college. Okay, if you can dial it down like that. Business finance is a really, really good college. I don't want to get into names so much because I'm trying not to make decisions for people or direct somebody. But a lot of people say, well, I'd like to go into business finance. There was 10 years ago, that was a specific enough path. But now certain colleges, this one in particular, will require you as a freshman to choose one of 3 tracks, even in business finance. They'll make you choose the financial services track, which includes insurance, retirement, estate planning, the corporate finance track, or the financial analyst track, including investment banks, brokerage, industry, or asset management. So they're going to make you choose a track within a track from day one. Okay, day one. That's how different colleges are. Okay, I mean, that's how the quality varies so dramatically nowadays, and why you have to have a process and work with somebody who really knows, how to direct you to the best college in the best way, because it's all I can tell you, the quality and the opportunities vary dramatically. Now, let me mention real quickly a couple of exceptions that you and I have talked about. There are exceptions now, and they're rare, but I'll just throw them out there. One's the NIL exception, the name, image, and likeness exception. If you're one of those elite athletes that have a tremendous social media following and you're an influencer out there and some college is going to pay you $1 million to compete for them, maybe that's an exception. All right. If you're a one and done athlete, you're going to go to a program in North Carolina basketball, Duke basketball, and they know you're only going to be there 1 year. You're Zion Williamson, and they're only going to have you for a year, but it's going to give them a great opportunity to win a national championship, and you need to use that as a stepping stone toward your pro career. Maybe that's an exception. Here's something you need to be careful of, though. Okay, and I don't know for sure the extent that this is. I just ran into this last year. There are some colleges where, if you um, go and start your career and even finish your career in 4 years at one college, you cannot reapply as a freshman at their college. You can apply to their graduate school, but you can't go back and be a freshman. I mean, start over in your academic career there. So you kind of have to know, and I think you and I are going to transition to community colleges and how you choose. But yeah, I never heard that before, where you graduated from this college, well, you can't reapply and do it right this time in a career that you probably should have pursued ahead of time at our college as an undergraduate. You can come in maybe as a graduate student, but to start, which you won't get in because now you don't have the background at an undergraduate level. But they're saying that, no, we're going to reserve our spots for undergrads who haven't already been through a program at somebody else. Okay, that type of thing. So there's just one thing to be careful of, and maybe a couple of exceptions to my normal 7 deadly mistakes that people make in choosing a college.
Absolutely. And that I think you're right, where that's probably not known. And we'll talk again about transferring colleges next.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people don't realize that there might be essentially contractual obligations there when it comes from school to school. So let's talk a little bit more about, besides a 4-year university, what are some other options that athletes can choose?
Right. Well, athletes, I don't really know. There's a lot of discussion now of, G leagues, leagues in other countries, et cetera, et cetera. And, you're only young once. You need to pursue your dream and do what you need to do for as long as you can do it toward that dream. I agree. You just have to be careful the assumptions you're making along the way about what I'm going to get after all of this is done. At some point, an injury or something unforeseen can end your athletic career in a second. And so I tell kids, choose your college or choose your career path as if your athletic career was ending tomorrow. Then where are you at? What are you going to do? Okay. So you have to. It's hard with the glorification and seduction of sports and showcases and things like that. It's hard to get kids to think about trade school, culinary school, or even the community college step as a maybe necessary step. And the first reason I find that community college is necessary is to be a better student. Some kids have dumped so much time into being the best athlete they can be. They're not as good as their study habits and reading and writing and critical thinking as they think, right? I went to law school with students that were straight A students all the way through high school, college, and even law school got really, really good scores on their exams and failed the bar exam because it was the first time in their life they'd ever been challenged to really, really have to study in a systematic, diligent way. So, this whole I'm doing everything to pursue my athletic career can really mislead people as to what, is best for them long term in their life. So, I don't have a lot of specifics, just generally, other than don't consider college as the only path. And don't consider 4-year college as the only path. There are other ways of getting where you want. As an athlete, I'll just speak from the baseball point of view. It is tough to get to where you want to be in baseball without going through the normal channels. There's not a lot of alternatives. It's tough to even get recruited into minor league baseball without going through certain formal channels. But that is changing today. There's a lot of places in the country where high school spring baseball is not the way it's done. I mean, they play club baseball all the way through high school. And I think that's starting to change throughout the country where, if the high school program doesn't have the best players and the best competition, maybe you should look at clubs and other alternatives. You just have to be careful there. And that's a whole nother conversation about that whole club mentality. But they do have pro camps and pro days outside of, colleges and stuff to try to recruit talent. But those are exceptions. Those are exceptions. So I guess rather than, what alternatives outside of college for athletes there are, I'd say switch your focus to what alternatives for my career and education there are. And let's see if the athletic piece can help pay for that, great. If not, then we're looking at intramurals or club ball or something like that while you're in college to fulfill your, desire to keep playing your sport. But your time as an athlete within a school program, it needs to be over. It needs to be over. But I will tell you this, if the parents don't buy into that, because some parents have spent, tens of thousands of dollars over a long period of time supporting their son or daughter toward an athletic career, it's as tough for the parent to give up, maybe more, because sometimes parents are living their, lives through the athletic careers of their girls and boys. So it's as tough for them to give up. So if the parents aren't bought into this is a tip for coaches. You're in a tough, road. That the parents have to understand this and they have to buy into this philosophy as well.
Absolutely. So, can we go two tracks to this? And I'll ask two questions and then have you answer it however you'd like. First is if an athlete, a student athlete, decides that they do want to potentially do a 4-year university, but maybe after a junior college or after a community college, number one, what are some things that they should consider? And then secondary, just to go off of the conversation we were just having, if it turns out that their athletic career does need to be done and they need to focus a little bit more on what they're going to do post high school or post college, how do you typically have that conversation and what are some things that come out of it?
Yeah. On the first one, the same rules apply to a community college, junior college that apply to 4-year college. They're not all the same. And you should go there and choose one first based on what it's going to get you academically. Okay. The professors, the facilities, the job opportunities for job shadows and internships apply just as much to community college as they do to 4-year college. Okay. Secondly, remember the community college thing is a stepping stone. Okay. It may be a stepping stone to your professional career, and that's what's tough. There's a lot of, say, baseball players that are recruited right out of high school to the pros, right out of community colleges pros. It doesn't really matter what level that you're competing at. It matters the program and the coaching you're getting along the way. But those community colleges are not all the same, and they may even vary more dramatically in their quality. And so you may have to travel even further to get one in, well, I shouldn't say that, but let me just say in most areas, the Washington community colleges are much better than the Oregon community colleges. I hate to say that, but it's just a fact in many areas, not all, but in many areas of academic pursuit. They're just better. Their professors are better, their facilities are better, and their job opportunities that they connect their student with are just better. So my players that are considering community college as a stepping stone, I refer them up many times up to Washington. The second thing is it's a stepping stone to a 4-year college many times academically, and those 4-year colleges, they have requirements about what it's going to take to get into the program that you ultimately may want to get into. Let's just say the business school. All right. You don't, in many places nowadays, you don't just sign up for the business school. You have to take certain specified classes and you have to do well in those classes. It's actually a competition to get into the junior, senior year business school. Well, you need to know that as a freshman in a community college. A, you got to know what those classes are. B, you have to work with the counselor at the 4-year class to make sure that the classes you're taking are going to transfer. Sometimes, they give priority from students within the same state, and the interstate transferability is a problem. And sometimes it's a matter of, well, at that community college, they don't even offer the class that you need to take. So then summer school becomes an issue, et cetera, et cetera. So this brings me to a point that's really, really, really important, and probably the single most overlooked aspect in um, career pursuit generally. You need to always work from the goal backward. All right. So let me give you specifics. If my goal is ultimately, say, to be a physical therapist, all right, well, that's probably going to require graduate school. Well, guess what? That what I said before about those resumes for that physical education teacher job, same thing with the graduate school. They're going to have hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants. Guess what they all have? Straight A's from a really good school. All right. So you better talk to those admissions people about how do you differentiate who you're going to accept to your program. Well, do you think you're going to do that as a senior in college? No, I think it's a little late to do that. All right. You either got what they're looking for or you don't. Okay. And I could give you examples. We may not have enough time of several of my baseball players who made that mistake. Well, it's the same thing in if you're a high school student thinking about a college, or a community college student thinking about a four-year college. You better start with the admissions department at the next step and work your way backward. And sometimes two steps. If you're going to try to get into this four-year college in the hopes of getting into one of those graduate schools, I think you need to start with the graduate school first, because it's a trickle down or a stepping stone scaffolding type of thing. I need to get from A to B to get from B to C, from C to D. Okay. So you need to start with that, ultimate goal, and talk to the people in the know and work backward. All right. It's the same thing that I tell my people in the career choice, and you're doing your informational interviews. If you want to be a physical therapist, you better talk to 10 really, really great women and men physical therapists and find out how they got to where they got. If they were hiring somebody for their company, their firm, what are they looking for? And then you can align not just your academics, but your work experience in those ways. All right. So you need to start at the ultimate goal and work your way backwards. The same thing academically. And yet, I think people just assume that it's going to work out. Well, I'll just go to this college, or community college. It's a good college. I'm going to play football there, and then I'll go to a college here, and they'll love me as a quarterback, and I'll go to this college. I'll do well. I'll get good grades, and I'll come out with a degree, and I'll get a job. And they just assume it's all going to work out. And it's like, yeah, they'll end up getting a job, but it may not be the job that they're really passionate about, or they really could have had if they had gone about it with a career perspective as the priority, and not the athleticism or the athletic piece as the priority. And what was your second question? I forgot the second question now. Excuse me.
They were totally unrelated, so no problem.
Okay. All right, so we went on the community college route. Sorry.
Yes.
I just have a lot to say about that. Anyway, go ahead.
The next piece would be if somebody does decide that they are not going to continue their athletic career,
Yes,
and they're instead going to pursue their career. How does that conversation typically happen? I imagine, like you said, that there is some resistance, especially from the parents. So how does that conversation typically happen, and what can you do, or what can other coaches do to help their athletes transition out of being an athlete?
That's a tough one, because typically that happens when the injury happens and they're already in college and they need to backtrack now. So that needs to happen when you start working with them as a middle school student or a high school student. Let's assume that you have that knee injury tomorrow. Okay, then what? Then what are you going to do? Okay. And if they have not thought about or had a process to work through the whole what's best for me in my career piece, if they've just been focused on the athletic piece, I don't know what it is you can say or do at that point. You have to really get them to go back, if they're willing to, and start that whole who am I process from that point. There's going to be opportunities. I mean, student athletes are prized for good reasons, right? So it's not like they can't get a job, but, and I'll just use a recent example, a very painful example of one of my athletes. who started with me as an 8th grader, and he was an average to, well, as a youth player, and a little below average. And I won't say his name because you know him. You saw me training him at the gym you and I used to work out with and stuff like that. He played 4 years of college baseball, and his parents were so grateful to me because along the way he saved so much money with his college scholarships along the way. And he was very proud to play baseball, and he was an average to below average athlete who just worked and worked. In 5 years, he probably missed 2 workouts of well over 1,000 workouts. Okay. And quite honestly, now he sells paint because he went to a college with a marketing program that was no better than probably a below average community college marketing program. And it didn't prepare him to do anything. I got him a job as a social media marketer with one of my players who owns a company that has a lacrosse app. And he said he learned more in 4 months working for that company than he did in 4 years in college. And it's just a reality. Okay. It's just a reality. But his parents had a very traditional way of thinking about college. It's like, we're going to go to college and get a degree. That's going to mean something. You're a student athlete. That's going to mean something. And the most important thing in college is not to incur debt. And so now he sells paint, doing stuff that he could have done right out of high school. Right. And it's just, he was not willing to buy into the whole process of thinking about who am I? What are my interests? What are my skills? What are my passions that I'm worth, that I feel like I want to work at 10 to 12 hours a day to be the best that I can be in, so that I can not just have skills, but marketable skills that are going to lead to a living wage job. I tell my athletes all the time, if all you have is skills, you've got a hobby. If you want a career, you need to have elite marketable skills. All right. So it's really hard, down the road, but you honestly have to start over with, okay, we need to reorient this. And hopefully at that point, they're willing to go back and go through the steps that they should have gone through originally about how to choose a college and how to choose a career path. But most of the time, they put so much time and energy into their athletic career and into their academics to take a step backward and to either start over if they're allowed to, or go back and take a lot of classes as prerequisites leading up to whatever they're going to go to. They just don't have the time or the energy to do it. It's really, really hard. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And was there anything else that you wanted to talk about in terms of career and college before we move into some resources that people can use?
Yeah. Let me think. I think we have, covered most of it. I guess I just want to reinforce again that be careful as coaching athletes, training athletes, that you don't fall into the trap of the glorification and the business side of sports. Okay, you have to understand all of these showcases, all of these, really exciting things along the way, whether they're AAU ball, club ball, showcases, they're all a part of a business machine that is driving athletes toward athletic careers that long term aren't going to be the best for them when it comes to their career. Okay, so make sure that you slow down and try to get some kind of process with some counselor that is going to say, let's just remove athletics for a second and just pretend that an injury or something unforeseen has removed that. What's best for you as the person? Okay, what's best for you in your long-term career? Because there are certain things we're doing now that are going to be necessary to lay the foundation for that. It may not have anything to do with sports. Sports might be an important part. I mean, it certainly is a great supplement if you can make the two marry. But most of the times they're not going to be, in that way. And so I just, if I had to say anything, I would say let's slow it down early as a high school student and try as much as you can to start thinking about it in that way and not just as an athlete. But it's tough. It's tough. I'll say that. Yeah.
All right, you brought up a lot of great points, and you did give me a good handful of resources that I will include in the episode notes. But are there any resources that you would like to mention for either athletes or coaches to get a little bit more information about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just say in general, because I do a lot of clinics and podcasts for coaches and stuff, because of my person, athlete, player philosophy that I think is really beneficial for all coaches to have, I really recommend coaches have resources that do two things and they use them every day. Number one, whether you're a reader or just like watching videos, documentaries, whatever, read, listen to, or watch something every day to make you a better person. You're going to train better people if you are always seeking to be a better person yourself. Okay. So whether it's spiritually, as a better student, as a better coach, as a better life partner, as a better, employer, something personally, especially if it has to do with the who am I and why am I here point of view. And then secondly, of course, just try to get better at doing what you do. Here's a caution though. If you're a professional student like I am and like a lot of coaches are, be very, very careful that you master teaching what you know before you expand what you know. And I fall into that trap. There's not a day that goes by that I'm not reading, listening to, or watching some source on being a better coach. And it's not just baseball, it's in any way. I have a ridiculously extensive library when it comes to resources, okay? But that doesn't mean that I should be using all of that in my coaching if I'm not as good at coaching those things. So yes, you should continue to learn. Yes, you should try to better, what you do as a coach. But the biggest flaw in coaching today is not knowledge, it's the ability to teach what they know. Okay. They do not know, for example, that telling is not teaching, that particularly kids today need visual and kinesthetic cues, not just auditory cues. All right. And they really don't know how to, what I say, literally take the bat, ball, and glove out of a player's hands and see that player as the athlete. Can you break down how that player moves? Can they move their feet efficiently and effectively? Posture, balance, footwork, angles, rhythm, and timing. Can they look at the athlete and analyze that motion to motion, step to step? So, and that directly relates to what kind of coach you are. All right. So that's number one. So here's some quick resources for personal growth, especially from a spiritual, what life's about. Anything by Matthew Kelly. My favorites are A Call to Joy, that's 1999. The Rhythm of Life, that's 2004. And the one that I just read is Life is Messy, that's 2020. The old standard that we've used for years and years with ourselves and our teams, I think it's a great book to read as a team with your athletes, is of course Chop Wood, Carry Water by Joshua Metcalf. That's 2015. And the other thing that's really inspiring to me is any stories about somebody who's had to overcome adversity in their life. I mean, true adversity, not an ankle injury that caused them to miss 2 weeks of their pro season. Now, that's not what I'm talking about. Somebody who really grew up, with being an oppressed class or poverty, or really had to work hard. Put your politics aside, anything by Jimmy Carter. Talk about a guy who's had an amazing life and career, in what he knows how to do and has done in his life, just amazing. Okay. From a strength and conditioning point of view, in my world, we listen to Eric Cressy and Mike Boyle. So ericcressy.com, and anything you can find on Mike Boyle on YouTube or Eric Cressy are awesome. Speed, agility, quickness. I get a lot of content from Pierre's Elite Performance. I think he has a lot of innovative things from a speed, agility, quickness point of view. When it comes to research, science, and nutrition, examine.com, I think, is a pretty good source. Just know that the caveat that what's today's cutting edge science is tomorrow's oops. Just know that after all my years in the business, what we used to think was correct and right and to do or not to do turns out to be maybe not the thing to do. All right. So those are some both on the personal side and generally on the coaching side resources that I think are really good.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. And so then I guess our last piece is how can people maybe contact you or get more information about you and what you do?
Awesome. Thanks so much. Um, I want to end too by saying, just before I forget, that just from a coaching point of view, if you're lucky enough to coach for 10 or 15 years or more, you're going to get a lot of thank yous from your athletes. And the first thing you're going to recognize in those thank yous is they didn't have anything to do with wins or championships. They had almost exclusively to do with how you made them a better person. That needs to resonate with you from day one. Okay, it's that connection to the person and the impact that you're having on that person long term that's going to be the most meaningful. So I have a saying that says, leave a legacy of good deeds woven into the lives as many people as possible. That's the way you should go about your coaching too. Not just by default or inference. You should proactively plan life lessons in your practice plans, in your training sessions. So I don't do social media for a personal reason. I think there's a lot of great things about it. I just choose not to do it. So I don't have any social media. So they can email me at asarancik@gmail.com. They can go on to my hot stove page of my website, which is coachingchampionsforlife.weebly.com, coachingchampionsforlife.weebly.com. I write articles for ABCA, the American Coaches Association, and they're published frequently in Inside Pitch and Collegiate Baseball News. I have 2 books currently, Coaching Champions for Life, The Process of Mentoring the Person, Athlete, and Player. They can order it through me or through Amazon. Again, it's a book that's universally applicable to all coaches in any sport. It uses baseball as the backdrop, but the philosophy and the processes in there. It's not a book about how to throw a field and hit a baseball. It's a book about how to teach those things, the methodology to be a good teacher. All right. And then Takeaway Quotes for Coaching Champions for Life is a companion book with a lot of quotes. And they're not just about baseball, they're about personal success and character and integrity and that kind of thing. And then I'm working on a 3rd book that hopefully will be out for the holidays. It's called A Ground Ball to Shortstop. And its subtitle is How and Why Coaches See Their Game Differently Than Anyone Else. So again, it uses baseball as the backdrop, but it's a book about how parents and trainers and people like that might look at somebody performing and see it from their perspective, but how coaches see it in a much more detailed, much more kind of 3-part person, athlete, player perspective, and how that influences the way they coach. And my hope in the book is that people understand, maybe this just isn't about cheer or basketball or baseball or whatever. Maybe this really should be about, and is to this coach, about the person doing those things. The old saying that we always use is, we coach people, not sports. And so the book, the hope behind the book is that coaches will read it and say, yes, I am going to give this to my parents at our parent, coaches meeting, and not as a clapback or anything like that, but it's just like, when you're looking out and wondering why your son is not playing shortstop, maybe you look at it from a more holistic and a bigger point of view.
Awesome. I'm so excited for that. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking your time to talk with us and to share all of this awesome information.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Adam.
Okay. Thank you.